Why should piano teachers be chord hackers? And what in the world is a chord hacker anyway? I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. I'm Glory St. Germain from Ultimate Music Theory, and welcome to the Ultimate Music Interview. I have got a super special guest today, and I'm so excited and thrilled that Tim Topham has joined me all the way from Australia. So welcome, Tim. I do want to say, so he's always in the future because I'm in Canada. So we're kind of, I'm celebrating Valentine's Day. And he's like, well, that's old news, right?
Yeah, that's right. That was yesterday for us.
That was yesterday. So I do want to introduce Tim. So Tim Topham is a musician, educator. He is a mountain climber, a lover of road cycling. I'm a runner, so I'm just kind of running behind him. Top-notch coffee drinker, as am I, and a desire to get his helicopter pilot's license so he can fly over to Canada.
Wow, you've been doing some research on me.
I have.
Very good, very
But
good.
wait, there's more, as they say. Tim hosts the popular Creative Piano Teaching podcast, and I was thrilled to be a part of an upcoming episode talking about all things music theory, of course. And Tim is the creator and visionary behind the Creative Piano Teachers Inner Circle membership, which is fantastic. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you. What an amazing introduction. Thank you so much, Glory. And I'm so glad we've connected. It has been way too long, and it's just great that we've been able to make it work today. And of all days, on your Valentine's Day.
Yeah, on our Valentine's Day. Well, I think one of the things that really intrigues me, and I should invite our guests to please type in the chat box where you are from. So I'm from Canada, and obviously Tim's from Australia, but share with us in the comments, where are you from? So we're from all over the world, as I found out in the inner circle, connecting with many teachers. Now, I'm excited to learn about what's a chord hacker, and of course, you're going to share 3 tips on why we should know about chord hacking. And I know you have a really generous special offer for us today, so thank you for that. But before we get into that, maybe start by telling us, what was your learning experience? Like, how did you start with your music lessons?
I was very lucky, Gloria. I had a super piano teacher when I was younger, and it was all caused by this thing, which I've shown some people before. This is a little Casio keyboard I was given as a 7-year-old, I think.
Oh,
and I just drove everyone completely mad by playing this. It's incredibly, I don't know if it's, like it does this and it's got all this, so just so annoying. And I used to just drive everyone up the wall, and my parents eventually said, that's enough. We need to get you piano lessons.
Yeah.
So I went to a fabulous teacher, Rosemary McIndoe, who lived not far from us in Melbourne, and started learning at 8. And she was a super teacher. She was, I guess, looking back now, I would say she was of an older school model. So I was reading from the first lesson. But what she did always do, and the thing that I have picked up from her, and one of the things I'll be talking about later, is that she always let me play what I wanted to play, as well as do the stuff that I had to do. And it's a big thing that I've carried through all my teaching. I encourage every teacher to do. I distinctly remember taking in the mood, I wanted to play bum dum dum bum dum dum dum. I like jazz kind of side. Chattanooga Choo Choo I wanted to play, and all of these things were well beyond my grasp at the time, but she stuck with it. She helped me, and that stuck with me all the way through. I studied some jazz after that for about 3 years, and then I kind of just did my own thing with the piano after that. So I had a big break from it, and I came back to it in the last 10 years or so, which is when I started blogging and things. So it's been a very varied career, and I've done lots of different things. I've been a classroom teacher for about 20 years in a variety of subjects. And I think that the fact that I haven't gone through the traditional method of sort of study, conservatory, university, all those kinds of things, has been one of the reasons why I look at music education from a slightly different perspective.
And so now, when did you start teaching? And so how do you feel you were, teaching differently? How old were you when you started teaching?
So I started teaching piano in a more formal sense about 2010 or thereabouts. So really not 8 or 9 years ago. I had, as I said, I've been a teacher all my life. I have training in teaching, but the piano really started off when I took on I needed some money, as people do. And I thought I can play piano pretty well, so why can't I teach it? So I took on a student, but the student was studying grade 4 exams. And here in Australia, that's a pretty big deal. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I actually went back to my teacher, reconnected with her, and she helped train me up effectively and teach me what I needed to know specifically about the piano. So that's how I got back into it. And that was when I started. And what I realized, particularly when I started working in a school environment, was that other teachers were really surprised at what I was doing in lessons, because I would hear this kind of jamming and I'd put on backing tracks and play drums, and the kids would improvise and play the blues, and they're all like, what are you doing? How are you doing that? Can you help me? Yeah. And that was when I started recording videos on YouTube and writing about what I was doing. And that was the part of my life when I really went crazy. I don't know if you've had a period of your life, Gloria, or your listeners or viewers have, where you are so passionate about learning about something, you just go to every single event, concert, masterclass, lecture, you take notes, you write books, and you just absorb yourself. And I learned so much in those years of sort of 2010 to 2015.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned when you started teaching, you needed a car, so you went back to teaching. And when I started teaching at the age of 16, I wanted a car, and that's how I started teaching. But the reason why, but you become passionate about it when you see the results that your students are getting. And you and I have shared a lot of stories, and I've kind of follow in your footsteps as well, is that I love to just jam and play with my family members. And I think the reason I had friends was because I played the piano, I had a set of drums, we had guitars and different instruments in our home, and so the basement was sort of the music hangout with our friends. And I think it's so enriching, and the tools and opportunities that you are providing, because a lot of times as an educator at 16, I agree, I was like right there and wanted everything that you are now offering. But back then there was nowhere. You either taught classically, or it seemed that all the people that knew how to play jazz just magically had that instinct. But now you're providing us with tools so that we can learn how to do that, because it doesn't come naturally for everyone. And I think in connecting with teachers, which you are doing, what do you see as sort of the one thing that's missing when you want to inspire teachers to teach things differently?
Well, the biggest issue is most often that we tend to teach the way we were taught, right, and our teachers teach the way they were taught. So we've got this method of teaching that is really strongly stuck in the 1800s still. Like, it's just been passed down and down and down and down. And the problem that I see, and the things that I hear from teachers, is that it's just not connecting with students in the same way. You have that 5% of students who will love exams and competitions, and they will practice 10 hours a day, and that's fine. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the 95% of the kids that they still want to go to the mall and hang out with their mates. They want to go to and watch films. They play video games. They waste time. They eat bad food, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Connecting with them, it takes a different approach now. And as you say, one of the biggest issues is that for teachers, I think a lot of teachers realize that this might be the case, and they're perhaps losing some students who they used to keep. The problem is then, well, what do I do? How do I teach without a book or do some improv? And so that's why I started creating the resources.
Yes. Yeah. One of the things too, and you just nailed it when you said that things have changed, and probably because of technology as well, because when I was a student, I heard music on the radio, or because my dad would buy a record and I would hear it that way. But now students are coming in with their iPhones, their iPods, whatever electronic devices, and say, I want to learn this, I want to learn this. And I think that kind of leads us into not keeping us in suspense anymore, because if you're interested in learning about all of this, you need to type in the chat, Chord Hacker. And I just can't wait to hear all about this. So share with us. Go ahead and type it in there, Chord Hacker. What's a chord hacker, and how, as a piano teacher, how can I learn about this, and what are some tips to help me out with my teaching?
Okay, so firstly, for those who are thinking the word hack means to break into computer systems, that is true. But if you look in the Urban Dictionary, so in common usage today, the word hack, as you probably have heard, Glory, kind of means to be creative with ideas around something and maybe find some shortcuts and stick things together that maybe didn't go there before and kind of make things up as you go. So that's what hacking is. And so I base my approach and the approach I teach teachers around this idea of chords, very heavily chord based, because that's the real thing that's missing in a lot of the traditional education we find in most instrumental classes, to be honest, but particularly for piano. So by the way, I should say I have nothing against reading. I've got nothing against classical music. There is a place for all of these things. Oral theory, sight reading is important. Yeah. But what I see missing is chords. And so to chord hack just means to think a little bit about how you can add some chord knowledge to your students' lessons. And so I do that, and I really encourage teachers to do that in three ways. I guess the first way is just to explicitly teach them about chords, what they are, how integral they are to the construction of music, and how particularly the pop music that they're all listening to is made up of chords, and often very few chords. So a knowledge of that is just so crucial. So that's kind of my tip number one: teach them about it. And if you're wondering how, you can actually be quite explicit. Just say, all right, we're gonna play something that sounds like a bit of pop music, and here's some chords. Just use some C, F, G, and A minor, white notes, triads, root position, as simple as you can. I've got the videos you can watch on YouTube for free. Just search Tim Topham. You'll find stuff about chords and how I do that. So that really is number one. I think a better approach, though, is to ask the student, what would you like to learn? What pop song would you like to learn? And then don't make this fatal error, because I see teachers still doing this. Please don't do this. What teachers will do, Glory, is they'll get that song, they'll download the full version, they'll go away and spend hours and hours rearranging it for their student in a simpler version, and they'll produce that at the next lesson and say, okay, let's read this pop song. It's the song you wanted, and you can play it because it's easy. Unfortunately, oftentimes the arrangement, even if you've done a fantastic job, just doesn't sound like the original. Absolutely. But more importantly, you've missed the biggest learning opportunity for your student. And that is to watch you simplify something in a lesson back to its basic chords is one of the most important skills a student can be given. So take that song. You might find the first page on music notes. They're always free, the first pages. Often students want to learn the first page. So just pull it apart, have a look, just read the chord symbols above, teach them how to play the chords, make it simple for them. Don't go and spend 10 hours rearranging and bringing it at the back because they haven't learnt much from it. So that's my tip number two. Do you agree with that kind of approach?
You know what? That is brilliant, because I agree with you so much. I think the other thing too is that when you do get a simplified version, sometimes it's so simple that they've taken the rhythmic pulse out of it and just made it all this straight, which it isn't. And so that drives me crazy, because you lose the whole point of that melodic line. So I think to give them that chord structure, to take the original and say, okay, let's just break it down. And a lot of the times, then by hearing it, they're going to ad lib and straighten out the rhythmic pattern because they know how it goes, but they've got the foundation of chords. So that's brilliant.
Right. And one other mistake that teachers feel if they don't do, they're bad teachers, and that's to look at an arrangement with a complex rhythm and sort of blow it up to big size and then write in 1 E under, 2 E under, and get students to kind of clap through this incredibly complex rhythm. Guys, yes, it's important if you're learning a Beethoven sonata or a Haydn or something like that. Yes, let's get the rhythm right and let's learn how it works. For kids that just want to play a bit of a pop song, just get them to feel the sense of beat, to know where the chords sit and the shapes, and then play it as they hear it. They'll hear it in their head. And this is a great oral activity, the sorts of things that you would love doing in your oral and theory work as well.
Absolutely.
It's like, get them to listen, get them to play it, get them to sing it even better first, and then play it. So that's kind of my tip number 2 when it comes to pop, working with pop with students. And my third tip is about how to actually fit this in a lesson, because this is the other issue that teachers often have. And so I've got what I call my 3 keys. I work on segmenting all of my lessons into 3 sections.
Okay.
So the first section is technique. And I include in that technique, oral, sight reading, theory, and those kinds of activities. So that tends to be what I start my lessons with, although I do like mixing it up. Sometimes routine is good, depends on the student.
Right.
So I always have an element of something technical in my lessons. Section number 2 is reading. And that might be a pop song, but it might well be your classical music or your exam repertoire or your recital preparation, whatever it is. But your reading is so important. And I'm a huge believer in the importance of students being able to sight read and read music. So that's part 2. And then finally, part 3, can you guess what it might be, Glory?
Chord hacking.
Right. So that creative element. So improvising, composing, chord hacking, just mucking around with chords, teaching them a cool chord progression. There's 3 kind of main pop chord progressions out there. I think all students should know how to do it, play those. If you're not sure what they are, then I've got a resource about that as well. If they are interested in a pop song, then you might do that at that stage, or if they'd like to do something by ear. So here's an activity that I love doing with students. I love getting them to try and listen and play bass lines, because that's a fundamental activity, because it gives you the sense of harmony, but students are not really used to doing it. So that can be a great activity. So that's kind of the 3 ways I break up a lesson, and they don't all get the same amount of time. The reading often gets the most time in the middle. The chords probably the second most time, and then the technical the third most time. But again, it depends on what's coming up, when the recital is, have they got an exam, etc.
Right. I think one of the way you describe the lesson is almost like coming in and having your full meal deal. You've kind of got a bit of an appetizer and then your main course, and you're saving the dessert for the end, because you do look forward to that part. And I like the idea of structure. You're right. Sometimes you mix it up, but I think for the most part, and I found too that interesting that you mentioned about learning the bass part. And I know that you play multiple instruments as well. I have had numerous students coming into class, and they're playing at quite an advanced levels, and they know how to read, and they know their chords, and they're in jazz band at school, and all of a sudden the band leader, the band director will say, "Who plays bass?" And no one puts up their hand, and then he'll say, "Well, who plays piano?" What level are you at? And then he'll take the most advanced student and say, "Now you're the bass player." And it's because they have learned that bass line, they've played it, they can read it, they read bass clef. And so I think we're doing our students such a service, because now many of my students are playing more than one instrument. They're now playing bass because they've had to, and they come in with those chords, and they don't have time to really learn it at school, as far as being just part of a group where you're just learning. So they kind of send it along to their piano teacher. And I think the earlier that you can start, the more fun and creative they can have with that music. And how much fun is it to listen to a song that you might just, hear even when you're walking through the mall and there's music playing, and then go home and just figure it out because you've got some sense of how that all works. Listen for the bass line, and then put the melody on top, and you're building life musician skills. I wonder, something that I love about your approach, Tim, is that you're creating lifetime music lovers, as opposed to kids that are taking piano lessons for a couple of years and then they quit because it's too hard, or it's no fun, or they don't understand it. Or I find now in the inner circle community, and I've only been a part of it for a short while, but while I've been in there and seeing teachers from all over the world, what impresses me the most is that teachers are so excited to learn new ways to connect with students and build a community of connecting. As I mentioned, my daughter's a music producer in Las Vegas, and she connects with musicians from Australia, and they send files back and forth. It's no longer I'm a piano teacher in my area, but now we can just learn from so many other people around the world. It's a time to celebrate that, absolutely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And aren't we lucky that we live in an age where we can do it so easily? Uh,
Absolutely.
and just picking up on your encouragement of students to play bass, I have encouraged many of my students to do two things at school because they're pianists and they're often on their own.
Right.
If join a jazz band and play the piano, but if not, join the orchestra and play percussion, because orchestra leaders love kids who know how to play tuned percussion because it's laid out like a piano. So encourage your students to do that, or play drums. So I played drums when I was at school, and it was the best experience for a pianist to learn drums. And I've got one of my boys actually who I teach now has picked up drums, and he's got a kid at home, and the ability for him to play in time has just gone through the roof, and his coordination and his listening better. The thing he still does do, which I've got to work on, is he still speeds up though.
Yeah.
It's one of those things to work on.
And that is a great skill for a drummer. I played drums as well. I remember my first set of drums, it was a Christmas present. And I was like, I thought I just died and gone to heaven. I, came out, and there below the Christmas tree was this setup of drums. I was like, oh my goodness. And it does really take a lot to have that discipline to remain steady. And so what a cool thing, to give your students an opportunity. Do you have a set of drums in your studio where they can actually play that, or was it just
yes, I don't have enough space here. When I've done that before, I've been at schools where they do have lots of instruments. Yeah, I would love a kit in the corner, or even a djembe or something.
Yes, yeah. Actually, you're making me think. I'm gonna I might just bring up the djembe and put it in my music studio. So you've got obviously so many amazing things. You make sure to put in your chord hackers, and because we do have that special little treat coming up for you. But I wanted just to talk a little bit about how you have created this massive resource, the Tim Topham, and I'm referring to it as a program because you've got your creative piano teaching podcast, your blog, your webinars, your courses, your inner circle. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities to learn from all of that. So can you just sort of expand a little on how we can connect and sort of what the inner circle is all about?
Absolutely. And look, I don't know if you've made the formal announcement, but you've mentioned it a couple of times. I'm very excited on your show to be able to say that Glory is our newest expert teacher in the inner circle. And we are incredibly excited to have her with us because we haven't actually got a theory expert, although that's only one part of everything that you give us, I know, Glory, because you've already started sharing so many great things. So thank you very much, Glory, for being one of our expert teachers. And it's great to see you connecting with our members, and I know we'll have much more of that coming up. But for teachers who aren't too familiar, some of them may remember, if they've been following me for any length of time, that I put out a course at the end of 2014, I think now, which was all about teaching pop music. So helping teachers teach pop music. And I launched that as a single course because I knew there were hundreds of teachers who'd asked me for help with it. Yeah. So I thought, right, I'm going to put it together in a course. And I sold a lot of those courses. And what I found, though, was that teachers who buy courses as a one-off, and I put my hand up, I've done this before. Sometimes you'll buy it, particularly if there's a bit of a discount, and then forget to use it. Because I don't know, life gets in the way, right? The other thing I was finding is that I wanted to create a sense of community around people who were doing similar things in their lessons. And I also wanted a place where people could ask questions and not just shoot them at me, but have the power of the community to help answer those questions. Because I also, Glory, put my hand up and say, I am not the best teacher out there. I'm not a specialist in every single area. I make mistakes. My students sometimes quit. I'm very normal. But what I do have skills in is bringing people together. Absolutely. And bringing lots of information out of people and having that sharing environment. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to create a community, and I'm going to put courses in that community, but I'm also going to have forums where people can ask questions. And so that's where the inner circle came out of, and it's grown very well, and we've been redeveloping it. We launched an app last year. So for those of you who are we're watching this on Facebook right now, so many of you will be in a Facebook group on Facebook. And one of the things I really wanted was for my community to have as easy access as a Facebook group for, quick answer. Look,
Yes.
open the app, quickly ask a question because I've got to go back and teach, and I'll
Right.
come back a little bit later. I'll look at my phone. There's a notification. I can see what the answer is. So that was something that we launched last year. But as well as that, we've got all our courses. We've got lots of lesson plans, downloads, training videos, how to launch websites, how to teach group, everything you need. So that's what it is. And we've got delightful people like Glory in there to help our teachers as well become Chord Hackers.
I love the Chord Hackers. One of the things that, and I know that Tim has got a really wonderful opportunity for all of you to become part of the inner circle. When I was in there yesterday, and what was so cool is that I noticed there was different countries that you could just sort of connect with teachers that are in your area, and in reading through some of the notes. So of course I'm from Canada, so I clicked on Canada, and as I opened it up, I recognized many teachers in there already. I said, well, there's Hetty Jagersma, who's part of the Tim Topham Inner Circle, who is also one of our Ultimate Music Theory certified teachers. And I went, so I
know Hetty, yeah.
And I said, Hetty, I want to tune in. And she said she was going to try. She might be on the call, so I'll give a shout out to Hetty if she's there. And I said, I have a surprise announcement, but you got to tune in. And I'm joining the inner circle as the music theory expert, and I'm absolutely honored. So as I went through, I recognized a bunch of names, and of course Sarah Campbell, my dear friend from the US. And so it was just.
So Sarah's one of our other experts. She joined us last year.
Yes. And also Carol Matz, who was one of my guests. And so it was just wonderful to see almost a few old friends. And I did notice some teachers saying, oh, hey, can you reach out? And met with Rosemary. And so it was just, it's just such a community. And I really love it, because sometimes I think we find, even when you go to a conference, they might be all, registered music teachers, or all this or all that. And you might feel a little intimidated that maybe you think they know more than you do, and you're afraid to ask questions. And having that community, you can just ask anything you want. There's no silly question. Somebody will give you the answer you're looking for. So it's a pretty cool opportunity.
And I will say 2 other quick things about the community being off Facebook. 2 of the issues that I find about using Facebook groups is, one, I'll go on there and I'll get distracted, because they design the platform to distract you. That's the point. They want to keep you on there as long as possible. So if you want to avoid that distraction and time wasting, then this is another opportunity that's got that community but without the distraction. Secondly, I do sadly find that a lot of the groups online, because they're quite anonymous in some ways, there's a lot of unfortunate conversations that go on, and people that are really rude to each other, and I find it really distressing. And I didn't want that in my community, and so you don't get any of that, because we really look after everyone who's there. We know everyone who's there, and people obviously commit some of their income to join us, so it makes it just adds that level.
Absolutely.
For the people that are there. So, Glory, do you want me to tell you what the special offer is?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. And do you want me to give you the link as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful. All right. So I'm very pleased to offer anyone who's watching the replay or the live, and anyone who loves Glory, and we all love Glory, if you would like to join the Inner Circle community, you can join up today on a professional plan, which is our annual membership, for $150 off the full price. So the full price is $399 US. And so this will bring it down to $249 US, and it's locked in forever. So you never pay more than that. And every month we add more stuff. So it only grows in value, which I think is a great deal. So $249 will get you inside. Hang out with me, hang out with Glory. And the link you need, timtopham.com/glory. Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. And if you can't remember that, just type in the words Glory Rocks, and we will make sure to put that link right in there, so you can just click and go right to the Tim Topham page. So Glory Rocks will get you in there.
Fantastic. Yeah.
We've got a lot of people hanging out with us today, and I'm absolutely thrilled. I know we'll go back in and answer some of the questions that have been popping up here as we go. So, Jim just says, wow, we've created a musical monster becoming addicted.
Yeah, it's a bit like that sometimes.
Sometimes it is. becoming addicted to learning new things, and I'm an avid student. I love learning, and I had a great session yesterday as I was going through the Tim Topham Inner Circle, and I was learning new things about just navigating through it, but also learning about that I already had some friends in there, which was fun, because when you go in, you might say, oh, you know what, I already know that person. And or maybe you're planning a trip to Australia and you want to connect with some teachers when you're going on your summer holidays or whatever it might be. But it's an incredible opportunity to not only meet all those people, but view the courses, be part of the membership. As Tim mentioned, there's the podcast in there, and I've enjoyed many of them. I told him I usually go to bed with my little earbuds in, and I just put it on. So I have this voice inside my head, but the interviews are amazing. Like, they're engaging, you're always learning something new, and they're entertaining and uplifting and motivating, because as teachers, we need to always get something that will inspire us so we can inspire our teachers. So thank you, Tim, for providing all those resources, because
it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
And Gloria, I love doing interviews. So I love hanging out with people like yourself, having a chat. If we were local, I'd be in a cafe with you now having a really good coffee. But that's what it's about for me. The podcast is just like, I'm having a coffee with this person. Let's have a chat, but let's record it and share it with other people, because we can all learn from it. So I'm so glad you've been enjoying those. I'm not sure what your family or other people in the room think when you're listening to me at night, but anyway.
They don't know.
Okay. You're like, I'm actually meditating.
Yes. And every now and then I laugh and they go, what are you thinking?
Brilliant.
Yeah, it's great.
Brilliant.
Well, thank you for sharing your 3 chord hacking tips with us today. They were just of great value, and thank you for that. Make sure to click on the link. If you put Glory Rocks in the chat box, Sheena, my assistant, will make sure to put in the link for you. And I will see you on the inside of the Inner Circle. Make sure to catch up with me. I'll be in there sharing all kinds of music theory tips and anything else, any questions that you may have, in addition to obviously all our other things. So thanks again, Tim. I really appreciate it.
It's been super. Happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you. And it's long gone for you. You're already in the...
I know. It's just some flowers upstairs now. That's all it is.
That's it. Well, have yourself an amazing weekend, and
thank you
for sharing this. And we will see you on the inside, as they say. Have a great.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
You bet. Teach with passion.